Julian, the celestial realm's master vintner, was tasked with delivering a celebratory chalice. The order had come directly from the High Chancellor, a fact which did nothing to soothe the unease coiling in his stomach. Orion, the Justicar, accepted the offering. He took a small sip, his voice a calm river. He commented on its fine quality, a good vintage, before adding the quiet observation that it had been tampered with. He lifted a brow, his gaze sharp enough to pin Julian to the spot. Julian's eyes widened, a denial stumbling from his lips. He insisted he had no knowledge of any additives, questioning what kind of substance it could possibly be. In response, Orion simply drained the cup. A slow, methodical smile touched his lips as he remarked that he did not know, but they would find out once the effects manifested. A moment later, a vein pulsed at the side of his neck. A bead of sweat traced a path from his collarbone into the folds of his tunic. The rims of his eyes took on a feverish hue as he looked at Julian. Julian staggered back, a desperate plea escaping him for the Justicar to remain lucid. This predicament was the culmination of a month's worth of simmering tension. Leo, the weaver of fates and Julian's once closest friend, had returned from his mortal trial hopelessly entangled with the Prince Regent Arthur. Julian's small, well-intentioned role in orchestrating that entanglement was the source of the current friction. He had tried to appease Leo with countless bottles of his finest spirits, but the weaver was not to be bought. He would toss the gifted flasks in the air, a chilling smile playing on his lips, enjoying Julian's discomfort. Fleeing Leo's passive-aggressive retribution was a daily exercise. On the day the High Chancellor had decreed a triumphal brew be made for the Justicar's impending return, Julian had felt a subtle thrill of joy. He had used the task as an excuse, gathering celestial maidens to harvest wild fruits in the Empyrean groves, far from Leo's usual haunts. But Leo's knowledge of his whereabouts was uncanny. He appeared like a phantom at Julian's back, his gaze a persistent, unnerving weight. Julian, his nerves frayed, had finally thrown his basket down. He had turned with a saccharine smile and asked the princess why he was staring so intently. The barb hit its mark. Leo's face flushed, and he warned Julian never to use that title. Julian, pushing his luck, had batted his eyelashes and wondered aloud if, after a month of this obsessive behavior, Leo had realized he was in love with him instead. It was then that Prince Arthur had materialized, wrapping a calming arm around Leo's waist as the Weaver of Fates struggled against his hold. The celestial maidens hid their giggles behind their hands. Staring at the bickering couple, Julian had felt a pang of something akin to exasperation. His conscience finally getting the better of him, Julian had surrendered. He reasoned softly with Leo, pointing out that even without his interference, Arthur would never have let him go. After all, Leo had been the one who, in a drunken stupor, had bound his own thread of destiny to a man who had secretly adored him for years. Leo had shoved Arthur away, his voice loud as he declared that the betrayal from a dear friend still stung. When Julian asked what it would take to make amends, Leo's anger vanished, replaced by a calculating gleam. He toyed with a golden cord at his fingertips and reminded Julian of his promise, made publicly before the court, to personally craft the spirits for his wedding celebration. Julian's face fell. He knew he'd been trapped. Just then, the very fabric of the grove seemed to shift. The ancient trees bowed, parting to form an aisle of swirling mist and light. A cry went up from one of the Celestials. The Justicar was returning. A wave of cheers echoed through the Empyrean. Julian's heart gave a distinct, powerful lurch. He looked toward the head of the path. There was Orion, clad in armor that shimmered like captured starlight, astride a divine steed. Golden eagles, Creatures of pure light circled above him, their calls a triumphant symphony. He seemed indifferent to the adulation, his expression serene. Julian felt his composure crack, his pulse a frantic drum against his ribs, and he quietly began to retreat into the crowd. A hand shot out, grabbing his sleeve. Leo gave him a quizzical look, commenting that he was acting strangely. Julian had laughed it off, remarking that it was only natural to feel stirred by the presence of such a hero. He tried to pull away, but Leo's grip was iron. As Arthur led Leo forward to greet the Justicar, Julian found himself dragged along, cursing Leo 1,000 times in his mind. Orion dismounted, the wind from his cloak brushing Julian's face. It carried the faint, metallic scent of a distant battle. Julian found himself frowning, wondering if he was injured. The Prince Regent offered formal pleasantries. Orion, having heard of the impending royal union, let his gaze drift to Leo, his inquiry about the princess laced with a genuine confusion that made Leo's smile tighten. He requested that the Justicar simply call him Leo. Hidden behind him, Julian fought to suppress a smile. He risked a glance upward and met a pair of inquisitive eyes. The gaze was light, like a fine mist, yet it settled over Julian's wildly beating heart with a surprising weight, bringing a soft, aching warmth. He froze for a second before dropping his gaze immediately. A strange laugh escaped Leo. In one fluid motion, he stepped aside and gave Julian a firm shove, sending him stumbling directly into Orion's path. The figure he had admired from afar for so long was suddenly, overwhelmingly present. Julian's breath caught in his throat. Orion looked down at him, and the proximity sent a jolt through Julian. He scrambled backward, nearly losing his footing. A strong hand shot out, steadying him by the wrist. The touch was brief, electric. Orion's voice was low as he advised him to be careful. Julian snatched his hand back as if burned. Leo's mocking voice cut through the air. He asked if the sight of his esteemed Justicar had rendered Julian unable to stand. Orion turned his head to look at Julian again, a subtle heat entering his gaze that made Julian's ears burn. Arthur, ever the diplomat, smoothly introduced Julian as the celestial vintner, responsible for the triumphal brew. Orion's gaze retracted. He gave a slight nod to Arthur, expressing his gratitude but also requesting that the Prince Regent inform the High Chancellor to cancel the feast. He explained that a breakthrough in his cultivation required immediate secluded Mad-Ion to stabilize his power. Disappointment, sharp and sudden, washed over Julian. Orion would not taste the brew he had crafted with him in mind. Arthur nodded in understanding. As Orion turned to leave, he paused, adding that he would be certain to attend the prince's wedding for a celebratory drink. Then he swung himself onto his steed. The golden eagles circled once more. He raised his eyes, his gaze sweeping over the crowd until it found Julian. For the briefest of moments, Julian thought he saw the corner of Orion's mouth lift in a slight smile. Then he was gone, a vanishing point against the celestial sky. Leo's dry voice broke the spell, noting that the man was miles away and Julian could stop staring. Julian pulled his gaze back to the present. He turned to Leo, his own voice carefully casual, and inquired again about crafting the spirits for his wedding. Leo's eyes narrowed, questioning his sudden change of heart. Julian feigned indifference, making a show of picking up his basket to leave. A flash of gold blocked his path as Leo cast a thread of fate to stop him. A sly, purposeful smile spread across Leo's face as he conceded that no one else's spirits would suffice. Julian gave a demure nod. He would do it. As he watched Leo walk away, a shiver of apprehension went down his spine. The Weaver of Fates was planning something. True to his word, Orion entered a state of seclusion the moment he returned to his estate. No one saw him. Leo and Arthur's wedding was set for 15 days later, and Julian buried himself in his distillery, focusing on his craft. One afternoon, Leo kicked the door open and sprawled onto Julian's favorite lounging chair, demanding a progress report. Julian, feeling mischievous, quipped about the Prince Regent's absence from his princess's side. Leo rolled his eyes, grumbling that he'd finally managed to slip away. Julian couldn't help but ask what it felt like. That moment Leo discovered Arthur had loved him for so long. Leo, with his eyes closed, answered without hesitation that it was baffling, appetite-ruining, and utterly chilling. Julian's brow furrowed. He was glad, then, that his own feelings for Orion were a complete secret. Leo's eyes snapped open, his gaze analytical. He asked why Julian was so curious. Before Julian could answer, Leo asked him directly if his feelings for the Justicar were simple admiration or something more. Julian silently acknowledged the Weaver's perceptive nature, but knew his own affection was different from Arthur's. He sought no return. Leo lunged forward as if to pry the truth from him. Julian feigned surprise, calling out the Prince Regent's name as if he were standing right behind Leo. Leo scoffed, certain it was a trick. As he lunged again, a low, wounded voice spoke from the doorway. It was Arthur, who had clearly overheard Leo's earlier declaration. A horrified stiffness seized Leo's body. Julian, seeing his chance, grabbed his basket, stifled his laughter, and fled along the wall. He snuck into the celestial sanctum, a place of potent, raw energy where the fruit was unmatched for distilling. He clambered up a massive tree, but after picking only a few, his foot slipped. He landed on his back with a loud thud. A voice, resonant with authority, demanded to know who was there. Julian looked up into the discerning eyes of Orion. Before he could process the shock of Orion being in the sanctum, the sound of approaching celestial guards echoed through the trees. Orion instantly grabbed Julian, pulling him into the shadows of a narrow, hidden cave. The space was tight and warm. Julian was pressed against Orion's chest, the heat making him flustered and acutely aware of their proximity. As the guards searched outside, Orion leaned close, his breath warm against Julian's ear as he murmured a question, asking if he was afraid. Julian, his mind buzzing, denied it, insisting it was only the tension of being discovered. A low chuckle rumbled in Orion's chest. He remarked that they were now partners in crime. When the guards had gone, Orion pulled him from the cave. Julian gathered the courage to speak, but just as he opened his mouth, Orion's brow furrowed in pain. He leaned against a tree, bent over, and coughed up a spray of blood that stained his white tunic. Julian stared, horrified, and rushed to support him. He remembered the faint scent of blood on him the day he returned. Orion, breathing heavily, waved a hand, dismissing it as a minor injury. But Julian's heart hammered against his ribs. Guilt, sharp as needles, pierced him. He asked if he had disturbed Orion's convalescence. Orion leaned his head back, his gaze falling on Julian with a faint, almost hypnotic smile. He asked Julian to keep this a secret between them. Julian, biting his lip, could only nod. He remembered the medicinal spirit he carried and offered it to the Justicar, explaining it would prevent scarring. Orion watched him for a long moment before a soft laugh escaped him. He tore open the front of his tunic, revealing a hastily bandaged wound, the flesh around it bruised and inflamed. Julian's hands trembled as he uncorked his vial and let the tincture fall onto the injury. He didn't notice the tears streaming down his own face until Orion hissed softly in pain. A finger pressed gently between his brows, forcing him to look up. Orion's face was very close as he asked quietly why he was crying. Julian jerked his head back and wiped his face, muttering that the spirit was strong and had made his eyes water. Orion made a sound of amused disbelief. When the wound was dressed, Julian asked if it still hurt. Orion smiled. No, not anymore. Looking at that smile, Julian felt a dizzying sense of déjà vu, and his heart resumed its wild, uncontrollable rhythm. He found himself resenting it, this power another person could have over his very pulse. He didn't dare return to the sanctum. Within a day, Leo and Arthur were as inseparable as ever. Leo visited the distillery daily, watching Julian work with an unsettling smirk. The wedding day arrived. Julian served spirits to the guests, but his attention was elsewhere. An attendant from the Justicar's estate arrived with regrets. His master was still in seclusion and could not attend. Worry and disappointment churned within Julian. All that effort and Orion would never taste his work. The High Chancellor raised a hand, declaring that though the man could not attend, the drink must still be delivered. He commanded Julian to take a chalice to the Justicar's estate. Julian bowed his head in acceptance, his mind a whirl of conflicting emotions. Leo gave him a strange look, a mix of hesitation and resolve, before waving him on. Julian stood before the Justicar's grand but starkly silent estate. He had expected to leave the chalice with the attendant, but after being announced, the attendant returned and bowed, informing him that the master was waiting for him inside. His nerves alight, Julian entered, his head bowed. Orion's amused voice drifted down from a raised dais, asking why he wouldn't look up. Julian raised his head and met a pair of lazy, smiling eyes. Orion was lounging against a throne-like chair, clad in a simple robe, his dark hair unbound. He seemed well-rested. Julian cleared his throat and announced his purpose. Orion beckoned him forward. Julian presented the chalice, his hands steady despite the tremor inside him. Long, elegant fingers took the cup from him. He couldn't help but watch, desperate to see Orion's reaction to the spirit he had made. Orion swirled the liquid, his thumb stroking the rim of the cup. He asked if it was Julian's own creation. Julian nodded. Orion brought the cup to his lips, and Julian held his breath. He took a small sip. His head snapped up, his expression unreadable. Julian couldn't stop himself from asking what he thought. Orion nodded, his voice a calm river. It was good wine, but it was drugged. His gaze was sharp, locking onto Julian, who felt the blood drain from his face. In that instant, he understood Leo's strange behavior, his unsettling smile. He shook his head frantically, stammering a denial. Orion's lips curved into a faint smile. He lifted the chalice and drank it all. A chill ran down Julian's spine as Orion calmly stated that they would soon see what kind of drug it was. Julian paced, his mind racing, wanting to force the Justicar to purge the spirit. He knew Leo well enough to know this was no simple sleeping draft. Orion suddenly rose to his feet. The vein at his neck pulsed, and a sheen of sweat slicked his skin. A deep flush crept up his neck, his eyes burning with a feverish light. It was an aphrodisiac. Julian instinctively reached out to steady the swaying Justicar, then pulled his hand back. But a hot, strong grip closed around his wrist. He looked up into Orion's intensely predatory gaze and stammered for him to use his celestial power to force the drug out. Orion leaned closer, his eyes fixed on Julian's. Julian's gaze darted to the bandage visible beneath the robes. He was injured, he couldn't risk exerting his power. Orion's voice was a raw whisper as he asked if Julian was afraid. As his hot breath washed over Julian's face, reason gave way to instinct. With a muttered apology, Julian chopped the back of Orion's neck with the side of his hand. It wasn't a knockout blow, but it was enough to clear some of the drug-fueled haze from Orion's eyes. He stared at Julian, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. His voice was a low rasp, still so ruthless, little vintner of the Stardust River. Julian froze, his body rigid, his mind blank. Orion collapsed against him, unconscious. He remembered. The memory flooded Julian's mind. Years ago, a young Julian, born of nature itself, had a singular talent for sensing the essence of spirits. The old Master Vintner had taken him as an apprentice, but his first creation was a disaster. His master had declared it undrinkable poison. Heartbroken, Julian had taken his flask to the banks of the Stardust River, preparing to pour it out. A hand stopped him. A young celestial in simple white robes, his voice like cool spring water, asked what he was doing. Julian had tearfully explained his failure. The stranger had laughed gently and asked to try it. He drank, his expression twitching, but he had called it good. To prove his point, when Julian remained unconvinced, he drank the entire flask and promptly passed out. Julian had panicked, thinking he'd killed him, and pounded on his stomach until the stranger awoke with a groan. He hadn't mocked him. He had asked if, despite the failure, Julian would keep making spirits. Julian had wiped his tears and declared that he loved it too much to stop. The stranger had gone still, his gaze deep and unreadable before smiling. He said Julian's words had inspired him to pursue his own path as well, and he hoped one day to taste a truly beautiful vintage of his making. Then he had departed, his simple robes transforming into the silver armor of a warrior. It was only later, when the newly ascended Justicar Orion returned from his first victory, that Julian realized who the kind stranger had been. That distant memory solidified into the living, breathing weight of Orion in his arms. He dragged him to a divan, gently using his own celestial energy to help neutralize the drug. He had messed it up again. A tear slid down his face as he looked at the unconscious Justicar. All he had ever wanted was for Orion to know that he could, now, create something truly beautiful. He knelt again in the High Chancellor's court. The celestial nobles regarded him with grim pity. The Chancellor's voice was ice as he demanded to know Julian's motive for drugging the Justicar. Before Julian could answer, Leo swept forward and knelt beside him, a theatrical flair in his movement. He announced to the court that he had helped Julian add the substance, and he would share the punishment. Julian hissed at him, but Leo merely explained that the drug was a mortal concoction, meant only to reveal the heart's true desire to those who chose not to resist it with their celestial power. It was his duty as a weaver of fates. When Julian furiously pointed out the danger to someone who was injured, Leo's expression softened. He told Julian that they were friends, and he would not abandon him today as Julian had abandoned him before. The anger in Julian's chest dissipated. He asked quietly if they were even now. Leo grinned and declared them the best of friends. The High Chancellor, unimpressed, decreed their punishment: 3 months suspension from their duties and a ban from leaving their estates. As despair washed over Julian, a clear voice announced the Justicar's arrival. Julian tensed, trying to hide behind Leo. A heavy gaze settled on him from above. Orion had arrived. He addressed the Chancellor, his tone respectful but firm, stating that he owed his recent breakthrough in cultivation to Julian's assistance. The eyes of the entire court swiveled to Julian. He looked up, bewildered, and met Orion's teasing gaze. Leo leaned over and whispered that the Justicar had come to vouch for him. As the High Chancellor rescinded the punishment, Arthur helped Leo to his feet. Orion stepped forward to do the same for Julian, who waved him off frantically. But Leo, ever the agent of chaos, chose that moment to ask loudly who the wedding spirits had truly been brewed for. Was it for the Justicar? Orion picked up the thread without missing a beat. He turned to Julian and asked if he wouldn't formally invite him for a drink. In Julian's distillery, surrounded by the sweet, woody scent of aging spirits, Orion strolled along the racks of bottles. He asked if Julian brought everyone here. Julian, head down, replied that it was his duty as vintner. Orion leaned closer, his voice a low murmur, and asked which bottle he most wanted him to drink. Julian, exasperated in his heart but composed on the surface, selected a small bottle with a low proof. He handed it over, explaining that it wouldn't cause dizziness. Orion accepted it, a yo-yo look in his eyes as he asked if Julian was mocking him. Then he uncorked it and drank it down. He watched Julian, his eyes seeming to glaze over. He swayed, leaning against a rack. For a terrifying second, Julian thought even this mild spirit had overwhelmed him. He rushed forward to steady him. Orion leaned against him, his clean, crisp scent filling Julian's senses. His voice was softer now, falling on Julian's ear. He said it was exquisite, fragrant, intoxicating. He congratulated Julian on achieving what he set out to do. Julian's hands froze in their search for a sobering herb. He turned his head away, a powerful wave of emotion burning his eyes. He thanked Orion for remembering. A soft laugh. Orion said such a memorable experience would be hard to forget. Before Julian could respond, Orion shifted, pressing him back against the shelves. He wondered aloud about something. Julian's heart hammered against his ribs. Orion's gaze was a physical touch, tracing the lines of his face. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, asking why it had been so important for him to drink Julian's spirits, why he had cried in the sanctum. He placed a hand over Julian's heart, and why it was beating so fast. The question came softly, a final, gentle trap. "Little vintner, you like me, don't you?" The secret, so long and carefully guarded, was out. A surge of defiant frustration rose in Julian. He shoved Orion back, grabbing the collar of his tunic. His voice was loud and shaking. Yes, he liked him. But what of it? Who gave him permission to know? His feelings were his own. They had never demanded a response. To have it all laid bare felt like a violation of the quiet, distant admiration he had nurtured for so long. He released Orion, tears of humiliation streaming down his face. Orion's hands came up to cup his face, his thumbs gently wiping away the tears. He apologized for his impatience. His own voice was thick with emotion. He asked if Julian still wanted to like him now. Julian turned his head, his answer a stubborn mumble. No. A sigh escaped Orion. He sounded genuinely troubled. But what am I to do when I like you? Julian's eyes widened. He took a half step back. You like me? Orion's lips curved into a smile as he nodded. After a moment of stunned silence, Julian managed to stammer that he had excellent taste. Orion finally broke into a full laugh, resting his forehead on Julian's shoulder. He agreed his taste had always been superb. Julian, still reeling, asked why. Orion's answer was simple and serious. You are determined, confident, principled. Why wouldn't I like you? He explained that before meeting him by the river, he had been a coward, afraid of failing to live up to his father's legacy. It was you who told me that to love something without fighting for it is not love at all. The next day, I went to the battlefield. The realization bloomed in Julian's chest, a dizzying, beautiful thing. They had been thinking of each other all these years. Orion's voice shifted, his fingertips tilting Julian's chin up. He used Julian's own words against him. You say you like me, but you don't want to be with me. Is that still called liking? Do you want to be with me? Julian couldn't answer. He was not ready for this. Orion pressed closer, his lips brushing the corner of Julian's mouth. If you are not ready, then I will simply have to pursue you. The outcome will be the same. We will be together. Who gave you such confidence? Julian whispered. You did, Orion answered, his smile audible in his voice. Because you like me. A reckless boldness seized Julian. He hooked his arms around Orion's neck, pulled him down, and kissed him. After a moment of surprise, Orion's arms clamped around his waist, and the kiss deepened, fierce and certain. When they broke apart, breathless, Orion asked what they were now. Julian wiped his mouth, his expression carefully neutral. Drinking partners. Orion laughed, a rich, warm sound. He leaned in, his lips brushing Julian's ear. I have just tasted it. The sweetest spirit in this world is you. Julian pushed him away, his face burning. Life like a fine spirit, he thought. He had known it from the moment he was born.